Welcome to Deleted Saves. On this episode, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order on PS5. Oh Lord, here we go again. I am re entering the world of critique with one of the most beloved science fiction and fantasy franchises of the late 20th and early 21st centuries. A franchise with now 9 mainline movies, multiple streaming television shows, video games, expanded fiction novels, both of the disavowed and avowed varieties, a tabletop game, t shirts, stickers plastered on SUVs and minivans owned by middle aged balding dads and frustrated moms trying to live out a tiny fantasy, toys, and Christ knows what else at this point. A franchise with leagues of frothing fans and now has the backing of the House of Mouse, despite the decades of late night pundits and socially upward suit and tie fucks making jokes at the expense of nerds and geeks, despite blatantly and capitalistically ignoring the irony of making fun of fans of one multi-billion-dollar franchise while worshiping the players of the NFL and betting on the athletic prowess of young black men, looking upon their trades of legacy franchise teams the same way kids collected and traded baseball cards decades before, or the overlords of the slave trade centuries before traded people. How do I reach in as an outsider and critique the ephemera of this franchise that has only existed in the public sphere for a mere, at this point, 46 years now? Well, the best way I can, as always. Today I discuss my time with 2019's Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. And oh god, Fallen Order, we need to talk. I should start at the beginning. I have never been a Star Wars fan. While I enjoy, however, distantly in its blend of science fiction and fantasy about future past space wizard knights that are equal parts a white man's interpretation of samurai culture and a retelling of the tall tales surrounding the Wild West figures such as Bass Reeves and Wyatt Earp. And for as much as it is a thumb in the eye of the more serious science philosophy of writers like Isaac Asimov and Arthur C. Clarke, and as a counterpoint to Star Trek and Gene Roddenberry's oversimplified counterculture interpretation of race relations and anti war stances, although I do agree with those points in principle. However, as much as I get it, Star Wars has never been for me. Its overly moralistic clinging to Joseph Campbell's Hero with a Thousand Faces through line, which has been thoroughly debunked as the decades since its upper academic debut have rolled on, as it trivializes anyone other than the Aryan ideal triumphant, is simply not what I look for in my dwindling interest in media. Then again, I'm not a sci fi guy. If anything, I believe that humanity's eventual return to the stars will be on a more resource gathering and capitalist grounds of a dying species having ruined their own home beyond salvation, and will be for far more mundane and corporate reasons. If anything, I believe the movie Alien has most accurately foretold humanity's future in space, and if there's any justice in the universe, it will end the same, with us getting stopped flat by an insatiable animalistic killer that we have no way to deal with. Now, I was technically there from the beginning of the Star Wars franchise. Technically. I heard it more than I saw it because I was still in utero when the movie debuted across movie screens in July of 1977, and my parents made the trek almost 50 minutes out of the way as the closest available screening to where I was born was being held in Binghamton, New York at a drive-in, back when that actually meant something. I suppose Scranton, PA in 1977 was too poor and backwater a market for Star Wars. But I was there. I had some of the toys, saw the sequels, but it was never a thing in my house. It was just another movie. Mostly I never knew it as a thing people got excited over until well after I began to grow older. I liked Harrison Ford way more in his role as Indiana Jones than I ever did as Han Solo. But I'd be damned if some of that franchise as an actor's success wasn't tied to his connection to Star Wars. George Lucas and his production company of Industrial Light and Magic, ILM, was custom built for Star Wars and went on to influence the technology of both the movie industry in its scope and special effects, and, almost as an aside, video games. Hell, I was hoping when I was in college, sharpening my skills and pursuing the ever distant acceptance as a commercial artist, to get in with ILM. My own teacher in college, a man who became a second father to me during that time, was even a model for young Luke Skywalker for the Marvel Comics run in the 70s by one of the pencilers for that comic. I found that out because my teacher, Dennis, was a fun dude and a great artist, but he didn't seem to be the sci fi type, let alone a Star Wars guy. But he had a copy of the original run of the 1977 comics in his office shelf. When I asked him about it, he cracked it open, he showed me the illustrated Luke Skywalker and asked who it looked like. And goddamn, if it wasn't Dennis. He found out that it was him because one of his students at the Kubert School of Cartoon and Graphic Art, where he had taught in the late 70s, had just gotten hired by Marvel to draw for the movie adaptation, but they couldn't get Mark Hamill's likeness, so we used Dennis instead. True story, by the way. If you don't believe me, then you can go fuck yourself because it happened. So this franchise has flowed around me like it was a river and I the stone for the whole of my life thus far. But it was not my thing. So how the fuck can I begin to discuss Jedi Fallen Order? Well, let's start at the beginning. You play as Cal Kestis, a former Jedi student a few years after the canonical end of the third movie in the franchise, entitled Revenge of the Sith, which after the shit show that was 1999's Episode 1, I absolutely did not watch and couldn't have cared less about. But because of cultural zeitgeist, I already know the ending of. The Sith, the Empire's attack dogs, reign supreme despite the somewhat questionable ethics of the Jedi. The Empire, the thinly veiled reference to 1939's incarnation of the Nazi Party and the Third Reich, rule the known galaxy with an iron fist, and Anakin Skywalker, Luke's dad, who was supposed to be the chosen one who unites the galactic superpower that is the Force, but instead chose anger and violence, as many would given the circumstances, is hacked up by his pseudo-Buddhist master Ben Kenobi, and when found by the Emperor is turned into the iconic Darth Vader, Lord of the Sith. Cal, who is a student during these events, and as the Jedi are hunted down and killed, goes into hiding, and as we meet him, is working a job on a trash planet cutting up broken down starships for parts. It is during these times in this embryonic game stage where we learn the early movements of the character, as Cal leaps between frankly impossible jumps and climbs dilapidated ship rigging like, well, a superhero in between sharp-tongued robots giving orders and Cal's alien friend Prof telling Cal where to go to follow him. When shit goes sideways and Prof slips off of a badly balanced scrap ship, Cal does something he wanted to never do again and uses the Force to save his friend's life from a several hundred-foot fall. Prof recognizes what this is, and Cal must swear him to secrecy. However, this does nothing to disguise himself from the Force-seeking Sith known as Inquisitors, in this case being led by someone called the Second Sister, and fuck if I know what that means as a term, as it is never explained, but I assume somewhere in the decades of exhausted lore that it is. The Force, I should note as an outsider, seems to be used in the same capacity as any other type of magic anywhere else in fantasy settings. It can be whatever the writer and reader wants at any time, to solve whatever plot blockade or cover any plot holes that occur. Sure, there are rules, but holy shit do those get ignored routinely to fit the plot. And maybe that is the point. If you have an entire setting built on magic ghosts guiding the hearts and minds of latter-day Musashi Miyamoto's by way of the Templar Order clones, with photon rapiers and fortune cookie wisdom, then why not have a plot malleable spells that cover whatever shit the writers bungled in their exuberance? But yeah, Cal gets found out, Prof gets killed covering for Cal, and we're off on a high-speed chase across this junk planet atop a speeding barge train that leads to a fight with this second sister until Cal is rescued by another group who are also looking for missing Jedi, but to save them instead. I mean, holy fuck. This is essentially Tomb Raider Fast and Furious Deep Space Edition, but the studio who developed this, Respawn Entertainment, who at the behest of their publisher EA, Christ, Can we not get rid of their $1,000 a night hooker smelling fingertips from leaving a slime trail all over the industry? Had decades of Star Wars properties to pull from, as well as other industry darlings to draw from for the gameplay, and shoved in whatever they could to keep the action going. Well, off we go on our first planet to explore Bongo Bongo or something. Bogano, I think its actual name is. God, these names are going to kill me. Looking for a vault full of Jedi knowledge. Here we get a real taste of the combat hinted at in the Junk World. When I first heard of this game, a lot of professional outfits described the combat as Dark Souls, but in the Star Wars universe, and they could not have been further from the truth. Yes, there is some difficult combat. Some. But really the game is far more forgiving, technical, and rote than that in combat. Very few times did I feel like I was really being challenged or had to think through encounters. Mostly I button mashed my way to success with a few additional tricks, like twirling my lightsaber like a Cal was attending an all-night rave in Times Square, or additionally getting a few context-sensitive quick-time kills. Combat, if anything, at times felt more highly unbalanced, with sharp spikes in difficulty followed by nadirs of action. And yes, because they can't help themselves, Cal gains experience too, which he can use to upgrade himself. Oingo Boingo Island is where we meet Cal's little buddy and puzzle-solving companion for the game, the tiny BD-1, a helper droid who will open any massive white footlocker chests Cal finds for ponchos and spare parts, and can read the great Jedi lore written in holographic text throughout the game, and hands Cal healing crystals, or whatever they're known as the far future, past, like they are sticks of gum. If anything, this is a Souls-like, done by someone who does not know what a FromSoft game was, but heard about them through a third-hand knowledge. Anyway, Cal finds the tomb vault of one Eno Cordova, the former master of his new ship companion, Ser Junda, who herself is a former Jedi on the run and looking to get the band back together in the wake of the Sith genocide. The dead Jedi Master tells Cal, or whoever would be a Force user who could activate this recording, that this is a holotape voice from beyond the grave, to get the Zepho, an actual serious in-game planet name if you can believe it, to find a crystal that has a list of Force-sensitive children that could be used to rebuild the Jedi Order. As I have heard it said, it wouldn't be a Star Wars game without a child soldier or two. So off we go to parkour across Zepho, which Cal does while Ser and the ship's pilot, an alien named Grease Dritus, which I think you can ask for your doctor about prescribing you for genital warps, stays behind. On Zepho, combat gets a little silly, as Jedi can apparently reflect laser blasts from a walking tank turrets and split 10-foot slabs of screaming muscle that seem to be the entirety of the native fauna. But again, future past space wizards with colored light microwave katanas, so why the fuck not? I write about knights and wizards and shit in my spare time with a straight face, so who am I to say this is not out of the bounds of reality? But Cal leads the planet and finds a pedocrystal on another planet, the Wookiee planet of, oh, how do I pronounce this shit? Kashyyyk? With 3 Ys and what may be a general slur against the Welsh. Look, we have to talk about the naming conventions here for a moment. I don't have any idea why characters, planets, or damn near anything is named the way it is. Yeah, I get that they were trying to make the universe sound different from ours, yet similar enough to make it seem like humanity advanced and met up with aliens and their culture. But there is a big difference between artistic vision and just slamming the utter hell out of a keyboard and running away with whatever comes out on the other end. At the time of this writing, I'm watching a YouTube Let's Player do a run-through of another Star Wars game, in this case Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, a game I own on Steam but I have never played due to lack of time and inclination. And when I say watch, I mean it makes good background noise while I'm doing other things. But the player has chosen to name his version of the main character of that game Worn Polo, which stuck out to me immediately. as I'm sure it did for many of his viewers. Look, when you can slip a joke name onto a character like that and still have it fit within the lore of the game, then it is either a supremely clever jest, or perhaps a wake up call to the now multiple crafters of the fiction to calm the fuck down. Maybe a John or a Sarah wouldn't go amiss now and then. Anyway, Planet Ah-Chu is a jungle city full of 7 foot tall roaring walking rugs that is under siege by the Empire. It can only be saved by, of all people, veteran character actor Forrest Whitaker, in the role of Forrest Whitaker, starring as an implausible character in a Star Wars property. This isn't who Cal is here to meet, but I'd be fucked sideways if EA didn't demand this character, who I think was in a recent show that Disney greenlit, or at least some character like him, shows up to lend an air of legitimacy to the property. Cal doesn't find who he's looking for, so he returns to Zepho to look for more clues, but is ambushed by the second sister that killed his old buddy Prof. This fight unfolds like a piss-poor version of the Ornstein and Smough fight from the first Dark Souls, only with more pointless frustration and less cinematic gravitas. This is the only fight in the game I seriously considered flying into a controller smashing rage for, something of which I've never done, but goddamn if it didn't get close. And there's not even a good sense of progression or learning in this battle. It's just bloody-minded stubbornness that saw me through, and made me realize that my reflexes just aren't what they used to be, even on normal difficulty, and maybe it's time to hang up my proverbial Jedi boots. It's a terrible fight, poorly engineered and executed. But after her defeat, Triple Six Tits, or whatever the Sith name is, warns Cal not to trust Cere, as she'll betray him too, just like Cere betrayed her. And I couldn't fucking care less. After the whinging and whining this woman has done behind a mask to try and sound like a dangerous badass as she pursued Cal across the stars, all that was wasted on me, as I was so over her bullshit that I stopped listening to anything going on, and I just wanted to be done. But it's not over. Cal begins to question his new teammate Cere about this, and yes, there was bad blood between the two women. Cere was training Trixie Bubbles to be a Jedi, but after the Clone Wars, then there's a can of worms I won't be opening. But the game assures you that you know of the deep lore, and Cere abandoned her to her fate and moved on. By this stage, I was less interested in these interpersonal demons than anything, so I kind of glossed over this forced dramatic conflict until Cal and Cere came to an agreement to trust each other again and get back to finding the Register of Star Children to be the next series of Chosen Ones. Our last planet on this incredibly short star tour looks like it came out of the wet dream of some ancient biblical prophet, high as fuck on mushrooms and spouting fire and brimstone the entire way down. It is perhaps the most gorgeously rendered world, despite the poisoned plants and canyon vistas looking over the rim of Hades, and truly the most interactable one. It's a shame the game waded so far into its storyline to allow the players to explore it. On this planet, we meet the ruined remains of the Night Sisters, witch women different from the second sister and their warrior men who blame the Jedi for the genocide post-Clone Wars, and whose last visage, a witch named Merrin, with her ashen skin, geometric face tattoo, and strangely European accent, hates Cal just for the crime of existing. Cal soon discovers why. Another former Jedi has crashed on the planet some time ago, and in trying to learn the genuine magic that these women know, rather than just the Force, has poisoned Merrin against the Jedi. But as luck would have it, Cal is just charismatic enough with his bland, dopey, and somewhat lopsided face to change Merrin's mind. And after killing this rogue Jedi, Merrin decides to leave her hellscape homeworld and join Cal on the good ship Lucas Mouse for one more trip back to the starting point. We make one more story stop back on Bingo Bango Wanglesy Tango to unlock the thing he was after, only to have it stolen by Ladyfoot Handjob, the second sister, before yet another fight with her, where she loses to the combined forces of Cal and Cere, who have decided to go full Jedi again. However, the MacGuffin is still lost, and the party chases Chili Longfingers back to some water planet where the Sith train their torturers. By this point, I had had enough experience and skill to make Cal a minor god, unstoppable by all but the thickest plot armors. And by fuck, wouldn't you know it, that is what happens. Cal and Sarah chase Tilly down and reconcile with her, but with Tilly saying she only went bad because it was cool and she felt abandoned by her teacher. Only to have Darth motherfucking Vader, the boogeyman of the entire original 3 films and the whiny piss boy of the prequel movies, explode through a wall, kill Tilly, and in cutscene format cause Cal and Sarah to flee because no one can face the power of the Lord of the Sith. I mean, fuck you. Maybe I want to try. Sure, he's shown up in other Star Wars games over the years, and no, you can't defeat him because he can only be killed in Return of the Jedi. And if anyone deviates from that, you'll face the wrath of either George Lucas's lawyers or Walt Disney's hit squads of lawyers. But what a prime opportunity to let the player spar against one of the greatest villains in cinematic history, thrown the fuck away for the sake of an almost hardline conservative clinging to canon lore, where even a hint of fun is heresy. Fuck you, game. Fuck you, Respawn. And fuck you, EA. In the end, they recover the MacGuffin only to have Cal smash it to keep the kids listed on it out of danger, and the crew of the USS Shittersful dash off into unknown space, looking for the inevitable sequel. I couldn't give a rat's ass about the development history behind this game. Let's be honest, it's a Star Wars video game. The points are made up and the names don't matter. This thing is going to sell even if it starred Adam Sandler as a bug-eyed tentacle man blowing a slide whistle up Jabba the Hutt's ass while Morgan Freeman read from the Unabomber's manifesto. So the folks who actually made it are just sort of there. Good for their resumes, though. Critics liked it, giving it generally favorable reviews in the 8 out of 10 range and around 80 on Metacritic, with lots and lots of praise for it being a single-player, self-contained experience and its combination of ideas from around the gaming world in the last several years synthesized into a good pop culture skin. Thousands of people have had a good, well-placed nostalgia for this franchise. I don't, but I'll say my piece anyway. Cal Kestis, as a character, is a slab of digital beef upon which the player can project their persona, a paper doll, to hit all the other paper dolls with. BD1, the puzzle-solving helper robot, was cute, sweet even, taking in all the best traits of Wall-E and splashing them across a canvas of a galaxy far, far away. This little AI creature had, if anything, the biggest and most detailed personality in the whole fucking game, and I'm kinda sad the game didn't star it. I liked Marin well enough. She reminded me of the kind of women I chased after when I was in my 20s. Angry, snarky, vaguely gothy in a less overtly threatening way, and the kind of woman absolutely guaranteed to tell me to fuck off and die at 50 paces before I'd introduce myself, because I sure as shit wasn't sure what she was looking for, even when I was much thinner and had more hair. Ah, youth. Sarah and the alien pilot Gargle Threepwood are just sort of there, along for the ride, in a way that drove the plot but wouldn't outshine anyone or cause continuity errors. The villains were faceless and forgettable, and considering you spend much of the game slogging through hordes of stormtroopers in literal white faceless masks, yelling battle cries in the same monotone, each a clone of the other doing the same tricks over and over, and to say the named bad guys didn't stand out compared to this really condemns this title. But the thing I think really annoyed me was the environments. In each world, you are given these beautiful, lovingly crafted skyboxes to look at. Just look at these works of art. And you spend 90% of your time walking through bland, metal, one-size-fits-all industrial hallways, stopping occasionally to play laser tag. A big part of the creativity of fantasy is allowing the character to interact with the environment, as the environment is a character too. If you are doing a sci-fi story jumping from planet to planet, then we as players need to experience the world too, not just show up, shoot space Nazis, and leave again with the occasional set-piece fight. Too many of these lush environments across these worlds go untended, allowed to just be background texture rather than a member of the cast. There are only a few planets in the end of the game, and yes, I know There can only be so much to explore in a game where the whole of space is central to the plot. But again, not being able to explore them in more richness is just another missed opportunity. The developer did try to make the game somewhat free to roam in, even though it is clear the expected path of escalation. This led me, very accidentally, to discovering the best weapon in the game, the double-bladed lightsaber, on Marin's homeworld, I believe well before I was supposed to. And that just made the game a lot easier than the developers intended. This can work in the player's favor if there is a way to scale up the challenge, but it seems like it was more of an afterthought, another oopsie in trying not to upset continuity, yet cram in all the fiddly bits of lore added in the 30-odd years before this game debuted. This may seem like a minor gripe, but all the cosmetic ponchos in the universe don't equal trying to explore the limited reach of the game once you get the best toy in the toy box just a few hours in. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is not a Souls-like. It's not even a Souls-adjacent game. It's Uncharted with laser swords, and if that is your thing, good for you. It's unbalanced, lacking in its own premise of exploration within a wider modern mythology, and a desperate product made by fanboys laboring under a bad dungeon master running a terrible game of Star Wars themed D&D, where they are seeing all the hits of the setting lore but cannot and dare not mess with them for fear of doing anything new or fun. I dare say Knights of the Old Republic did this premise way better 20 years earlier, at least in what I've seen of it on passing YouTube videos and other podcasts on the subject. This is an action-adventure title with unnecessary frustration and combat better implemented than other games. I'm not the biggest fan of the Jedi and all that, but I can at least distantly appreciate it. And even though I've rarely ever interfaced with this franchise, I still feel other things within this franchise did it better. I really don't know what or for whom Fallen Order is for, but I guess the fans got what they wanted? Maybe? Like I said, I don't know. I'm an outsider here. In another time, another place, another version of me, maybe Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order would have been the shit. Would have been my jam, as they say. As it is, it was just another title I played, dipping my toe into the world of Star Wars titles and pulling it back out once I'd had my fill, once I'd seen the elephant. It was there, it annoyed me into talking about it, and then it warp sped away up the asshole of its own premise. This is what that far away galaxy is like. Well, I guess I don't get it. It seems far less imaginative and far more middling than I was led to believe. A far cry, I think, from the parts and stories it sums up and draws inspiration from. And that, I think, is a shame all its own. Thank you for listening. Deleted Saves would like to thank Brad, Keith Gasper, Orden Wells, and Mass Lama for being patrons of the show. If you would like to become a patron of the show, please go to patreon.com and check out Deleted Saves podcast. All donations go directly towards maintaining the show itself. Thank you.